Welcome back, guys, to another one of these videos where I just information dump everything that's on my brain about a certain subject so that you don't have to watch a bunch of YouTube videos trying to figure it out. If you're new to this channel, my name is Clark Wilson. I'm a pre-med student and I'm making these videos for your convenience because I have watched way too much pre-med YouTube and Reddit and Student Doctor Network, and I really just want to make this process easy for you. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff in this video, and I'm serious, it's a lot of stuff. It's everything from all the different prep materials that you can use, when to register for the MCAT, how much it costs, what I wish I would have done differently, what you can do to prepare, what to do for the days leading up to your exam, the day before your exam, on exam day, what you should do after your exam. Literally everything in my brain that I have experienced and learned or wish I had learned about the MCAT, I am going to share it with you in this one video. So first, let's just start off by talking about what the MCAT is. MCAT stands for the Medical College Admissions Test, and it is a long freaking exam. It is 7.5 hours, and there are 4 sections, and there are 59 questions on the first section, 53 on the second, and then 59. So that's a total of 240 questions. I used to have that memorized. I don't know if that's, yes, 240 questions. The first section is chemistry, physics, and then the next section is CARS, or critical analysis and reasoning skills, and then biology, biochemistry, and then finally psychology, sociology, which is the most recent section added to the MCAT in like 2015 or something like that. And in 2026, it will cost you $355 to register to take the exam one time. If you miss that date or you have to change it, it'll also cost money, and I'll put that up on the screen right now because it's kind of confusing actually. The dates and stuff change for when you're allowed to change your date and how much it's going to cost for those days. Now, philosophically, the MCAT is not just a test of facts, although you have to know a lot of facts, and facts will allow you to quickly answer questions sometimes. But in reality, most of the MCAT is just testing your ability to use information in new situations and new scenarios. I think the best way to sum it up is that the MCAT is a test of preparation. If you're very well prepared for the MCAT, you're going to do fine. If you're not, then good luck. This video is to help you get prepared. I want you to walk away from this video being like, I feel so prepared for the MCAT, because there's so much stuff out there. I say this in every video. There's just so many videos out there. Just watch one video, or at least reduce the amount of videos that you have to watch so that you can spend more time studying. And I hope to be able to point you in some useful directions. So now let's talk about that. Let's talk about studying. Should you self-study or should you get a prep course? Well, there are some things to consider. Are you a rich person? If you have some money to put away for a prep course, that might be a really good idea. I know that prep courses can be anywhere from like $2,000 to $5,000. So if you have that amount of money and you're like, I'm gonna do way better just with the structure of having mentors and peers to learn with and just kind of tell me what to do, and I don't want to figure it all out myself, then that's a great idea. You should do a prep course. If you are a little bit more like me and you don't want to do a prep course because you don't want to shell out like $5,000, that's okay too. You can do that. It might just take a little bit more research and more legwork on your end to figure out what works best for you, because you're not going to have people telling you what you should do. Thankfully, we have the internet though, and there are so many great resources online that I'm going to talk about right now. But the key for self-studying is to know your resources like the back of your hand. If you know all of the tools and the resources you have to study to get the best score possible, and you know how you fit with all of them, like you might not be a good fit for half of the study resources online, and so that might take some time to figure out, but once you find something that works for you, then that's amazing. That's going to help you get the score that you want. Now, with that being said, all of the things that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to be listing my opinions, and that might be different for you. You might have a great experience with Princeton Review, while I did not have a great experience with Princeton Review, and that's okay. There are other things that I did in my study journey that I feel like improved my score much more than my time reading Princeton Review textbooks, or even their practice exams, which destroyed my soul because they were so much harder than the actual MCAT. And how long does it take to study? That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that question. I don't think that it's a day thing. I think that it's an hours thing. If you can treat it like a full-time job for 3 months versus a part-time job for 6 months, that's sort of the way that I went about it. Just know that if you study for too long, you're gonna burn out. If you study for like 8 months, you do not wanna be studying for the MCAT for 8 months. You might think that's gonna give you like a really good shot at getting a great score. That's a really long time to be studying for one exam. So try to condense that down to a shorter amount of time where you can dedicate more hours. I would also take a diagnostic full-length exam maybe an AAMC one, because they're adding another official exam at the very beginning of your studying to sort of see what the pacing is like, to see what you might need to focus your study efforts on. And I would save all of your AAMC study material towards the end, okay? Because you want to kind of get all of their wording and styling and vibe in your head, get used to that right before you take the exam. You don't want to start with all of that and then sort of stray away from it by doing a bunch of third-party stuff. I took a full-length exam every single week leading up to my MCAT. My last full-length that I took it on like a Monday, and then I took my MCAT on a Saturday, slightly less than a week's time, which I would recommend. Your last full length, I wouldn't take it more than a week out from your MCAT. Try to take it less than a week out so that that's fresh in your brain and that stamina is still in you. The absolute best study resources for the MCAT are the ones set out by the AAMC. Now these are definitely the best because they are written by the same people that write the test you're going to take. Yes, you could have third-party people write questions on organic chemistry or physics or whatever, but they are not going to always use the same logic as the AAMC. They might test you on amino acids or on electrochemistry, but you want to make sure that you are studying in a way that is using the same logic as the AAMC, because it's not just a mere test of facts, it's a mere test of preparation. So if you can prepare to take the MCAT, and not just to prepare to take a test on the entire field of general chemistry, but on how the MCAT tests general chemistry, that is how you're going to get a high score. The goal for the MCAT is not to know everything, it's to know how to take the MCAT. So I paid $310.25 for the AAMC prep bundle. It's like an online bundle, you get access for a year. Super useful. I would definitely go for that. I will say that the worst thing about the AAMC bundle is that their explanations are absolute dog water. You will have many times that you are doing a question and you won't have any idea why the question is right or why the one that you picked was wrong. And the AAMC does not do a good job at explaining it. They have explanations for each option of answer, and they try to explain why certain ones are wrong and why the correct one is right, but they do a pretty bad job, I'm not gonna lie. When I was reviewing my exams and doing my practice questions, I spent probably 50% of that time on Reddit, copying and pasting each question with the explanation into Reddit, because there are huge Reddit forums of people trying to figure out what the AAMC is saying, and honestly it was pretty helpful. There's some people that have some really nice tricks and explanations in Reddit. It's kind of unfortunate that the AAMC doesn't give sufficient explanations on their own exam, but it is what it is. Another incredible resource that I used was YouTube, and I'm gonna go over a bunch of different YouTube channels that really helped me. Now, these YouTube channels don't go over the entire curriculum of the MCAT, but they hit some of the hard topics really, really well, in my opinion, and they helped me prepare a lot. Leia for Sci was really good for chemistry and calculations, knowing how to do exponents and logs and stuff like that. Eightfold MCAT, dude, literally just binge Eightfold MCAT videos, because he'll just take something like electrochemistry, or dude, I can't even remember like what's on the MCAT anymore. Pick something that's on the MCAT, he probably has a video on it, and I swear every time I watched a video, he had some sort of trick or some sort of way of remembering something that stuck with me so well that I remember using on test day, specifically from his videos on multiple different subjects. So binge Eightfold MCAT. There's also Science Simplified. Now, Science Simplified is sort of a cult classic. This guy's amazing. And he kind of talks like this and he sounds like, yeah, especially when you watch him on 2x speed like I did. I actually kind of like the crackhead enthusiasm that he has in his videos, and it sort of helps me get pumped up. In fact, that's kind of how I used to read Cars passages in my head. So yeah, I really like Science Simplified. He has also lots of great mnemonics and ways of memorizing things that stuck with me on test day. And those little mnemonics and things are so great because they save you time, and time is everything on the MCAT. Like on Cars, I used every single second. Every single second. I did not break focus for an entire hour and a half. And on the other sections, there were moments that I was pressed for time and I'd get to a question and I could remember a quick mnemonic that would help me get the right answer. And I would have spent a lot of time on that question, but because I had the mnemonic in my head and I just used it, boom, fast, saved me a bunch of time. So those channels are great for that. There's also Khan Academy, and now Khan Academy was like hired or something by the AAMC to make a bunch of medical videos. And so they, to a lot of people, are seen as a great resource, but genuinely, I have run into a lot of wrong things in their videos, and people point them out in the comments. Like I remember one video specifically about like the fertilization of an egg. They were getting like maybe some of the terms wrong or weren't fully explaining what they were talking about, and people in the comments were really confused and were like, yeah, this is wrong. Just be aware of that. Sometimes in Khan Academy videos, there's not like 100% accuracy. I'd say the vast majority of their videos are pretty good though. They do tend to go very in depth. If you want more in depth stuff, then watch a Khan Academy video. Oh, I just spilled water all over myself. Oh well, I'm like 5 years old. Now, the Brem method. I really like the Brem method. Her videos are short and to the point. She also gives a lot of quick ways to remember things. I remember watching her video on the renal system a lot. That video was awesome. She has tons of other great videos. Another really great channel to just binge. And finally, IFD. And I liked the ones where they would go over a passage and then go through the logic that they use to get to the right answer. I'm pretty sure that was their channel. But yeah, they were a great channel. And also other channels that I haven't mentioned in this video. I know I'm not saying every single channel that I watched, but there are some other great videos on YouTube of people doing that sort of thing. Like they'll take a CARS passage and they'll go through it and they'll read it and they'll go over their thought process and why they're clicking the right answers. That was actually great for me because it taught me a CARS strategy that I hadn't been using, that once I started implementing, shot my CARS score from like 125 to a 129. I got a 127 on test day, but it's fine, whatever. So please, 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 to sum this all up, use YouTube as a resource. These are great channels. These helped me tremendously in my MCAT study. And it's kind of crazy that you can basically just for free go on to YouTube and get professional, amazing advice from MCAT tutors. Moving on. Now let's compare all like the big name exam prep things. Because you got Kaplan, Princeton Review, Examcrackers, Uworld, and Blueprint, and all those guys. And more. There's more. There's a lot. I was given a bunch of the Princeton books by a friend who had done very well on the MCAT, and he said that he just sort of flipped through the pages and read them and then did flashcards, and then he got like a 100th percentile score. That did not happen with me. In my experience, the Princeton Review books were basically like taking an entire undergrad course, way more depth and detail than the MCAT would actually expect you to go into. I went away reading those books and thinking to myself, wow, I have to know all this stuff. It turns out I didn't have to know all that stuff. For that reason, I was not a huge fan of Princeton. And also the Princeton exams were the first 3 full-length exams that I took, and they were so much harder than the actual MCAT. When I actually got to taking the AAMC official exams from the bundle that I was telling you about earlier, I think there's 5, and maybe they've even added a 6th one now. They just announced that. No, I think there's 7. There were 6 and they've added another one. My score jumped up 10 points. I'm gonna tell you what it was. I'm gonna tell you what my scores were. So I took 10 practice exams. Let's see if I can remember this. The first 3 were Princeton Review, 496, 497, 501. And then I took the AAMC full length 1 and I got a 507. Then I took the free Blueprint, got a 503. And then the rest of the ones that I took were all the AAMC, and I did 506, 506, 509, 516. I also took the unscored one from the AAMC. There's an exam that you take it and it's unscored, but it tells you which ones you got wrong and the explanations. It just doesn't give you like an actual score. And I think I got like a 506 on that one. So yeah, there was a pretty big jump between the third-party stuff and the AAMC stuff. And also you probably noticed that my progress was not very linear. I jumped a bunch of points at the very end, like from a 509 to a 516 about 2 weeks before my actual test date, and I ended up with a 514. So that will probably happen to you as well. Just trust in the process. Your score will start to climb exponentially as you get closer to the exam. I promise. Just stick with it. Keep grinding. Okay, I gotta go quicker. I gotta go quicker. Kaplan and Princeton, I feel like are pretty similar. You can try one out for a little bit. If you like it, keep going with it. If you don't, then just ditch it. Just know that the Kaplan and Princeton exams are a lot harder than the actual MCAT exams. I have no experience with Examcrackers, but people really like them, and go ahead and try them out. If you like them, then go for it. Uworld. Uworld is something that I wish I did, but I didn't, because Uworld has incredible explanations for their right answers. People say that their materials most similarly mirror the logic of the AAMC. That's why I really wish I would have done Uworld. I didn't do any Uworld, so I'll definitely check that out if you haven't already. And then Blueprint, I took their free exam. It was okay. I got a 503 on it. I felt like it was sort of out of scope of the MCAT, but it like wasn't that bad. They have a ton of exams though. They have like 10 or 15 of them, but I've heard that they get way harder the farther down you go, and way not representative of what the AAMC will test you on. And once again, you might find success with one of these options and somebody else might not, okay? And that's totally fine. You just gotta try some of them out and figure out what works best for you. If you know already the style that works best for you, then go for that. And if you don't, you might have to spend a little bit of time figuring that out. Try a few different study materials. I know a lot of these have like free trials, and just sort of see what you like and what ends up paying off in higher scores, and then stick with that. I know there's not a whole lot of time to figure that out, so it is, I think, in the end, more important to just sort of stick to something, but just know that you can experiment with a few things, like I did. There's also a website called Westin, and it is completely free. There's tons and tons and tons of free practice questions on here. In fact, you can create mini exams for yourself on like specific subjects. So like you could create a 50 question exam of only discrete, which means like questions that are without a passage, only discrete questions for biology. and then just do all of them and look at all the explanations. And the Jack Westin explanations are pretty fire, I will say. They got diagrams and they explain very thoroughly. And those are great. I really like Jack Westin. Anki is also an incredible resource. It's a flashcard software that you can download to your computer. You can also get it on your phone. If you get it on your phone though, it costs 25 bucks, but you can sync it to your computer and then you can use them at the same time. Like you can use your phone on the go while you're taking a dump or on the bus or whatever. And then when you go on your computer, you click sync and it'll sync it all up, and it's kind of nice. You know, you can get a lot more studying done that way. Now, the specific deck that I used the Miles Down MCAT deck. I like that deck a lot. It's a great deck, but I would switch out the Psychology Sociology deck for the Mr. Pankow deck for Psychology Sociology. There's a lot more cards in the Mr. Pankow deck, but I feel like it prepared me a lot better, and I ended up getting a perfect score on the PS section, so take that for what it's worth. For example, the reason that that deck has more cards is because a lot of the terms for this section are really similar to one another, and they have very distinct boundaries that are sometimes hard to figure out, and so for one term, it'll test you in like 3 different areas, like 3 different ways. It'll give you like a definitional flashcard, and then another flashcard that gives like a situation or a scenario, and then another one for something else. And it kind of gets you into the habit of recognizing it in multiple different settings. So that's why there's way more cards in that deck, but I feel like it really ingrains those concepts and those words in your brain, because this section, out of all the sections, is the one that requires the most like brute fact memorization. I'd say the last section and the first section actually, because the first section just is a lot of equation memorization, which I'll talk about in a sec. Another incredible resource was the 300-page Psychology Sociology document. This is something that you can find on Reddit, just look it up, and it's great. I would just go through it, make sure that you understand everything on that document. I know it sounds like a lot, but you can read like 10 pages a night before going to bed or before starting your study. Find a time in the day that works best for you. Here's a little trick. Try doing it at the end of your study, because that's sort of the mental fatigue level that you're gonna have at the end of the MCAT when you're going to be using that information. And one final note on third-party exams. I think that third-party exams are great if you're testing for endurance, if you want to really just focus and try to get your timing down, not spending too much time on questions that you don't understand, and using good logic to guess for the right answer, but they are not representative of how smart you are or how you're going to actually do on the MCAT. Take them for different reasons than getting like the best score ever. Another great study resource is to make a document of all the questions on your exams that you're getting wrong, or questions that you notice that you get wrong a lot. Put those questions in a document and figure out some sort of way to kind of remind yourself how to get the right answer, or to recognize why you're getting the wrong answer and how you can get the right answer the next time. After each of your full-length exams, I would also review your exams very thoroughly, go over every single correct answer and incorrect answer, so everything. And if you got the answer correct, make sure that you got it correct for the same reason that the AAMC says that the answer is correct, and not for a different reason, because that's like chucking a basketball and it randomly getting into the basketball hoop, rather than like making a calculated effort and swishing it. There will also be times where you might think that a question that the MCAT is asking you is way too complicated, and it is probably because the answer is way more simple than you think. Recognize those situations, and you'll get to a point where you kind of have a good idea of the information that the MCAT is going to test you on. And if it seems like they're going way beyond that, it's because there's some sort of mental shortcut that you're not getting, and the answer is right in front of your face. That's sort of like a later in the game tip, because it takes a while to kind of figure out what the MCAT is really going to test you on, but there's another bit of advice. Okay, so now I'm just gonna do a blitz through all the sections and give you some advice for each one of them. For the CP section, so chemistry, physics, I would recommend knowing the crap out of your equations, because your equations are going to be your best friend. The best way to memorize your equations is to have a document of all the equations. There's a really good one online. You just look up chemistry, physics section of the MCAT, equations list. It's like 5 or 6 pages, and it gives you the equation, the units, what the equation is called, all that sort of stuff. And what I would do, I would go day by day, and this is what I did. I would take one day and I would memorize every equation on that paper, and then I would try to regurgitate it without looking at it onto a different piece of paper. Write down the equation, what it's called, what it's used for, and the units. Okay, and then do the next one, and then do the next one, do the next one, until you can, at some point, fill up an entire page full of every equation that is going to be on the MCAT. That might sound like a lot, and it is a lot, but it is so useful. If you can have these equations in your back pocket, know their units, know when they're used, you can save so much time on this section. And this is a section that I would frequently run out of time on because I didn't know the equations and I would try to figure it out, but you don't have to always figure it out. You can if you're really fast and smart, but I was not. Anki is also a great resource for memorizing equations. You also need to know how to convert your units very well for this section. So converting from like picometers to nanometers. One of the best mnemonics I knew for this section was, the great man King Henry's daughter drank milk until 9 p.m. And every one of those words corresponds to like a different numeral. I don't know exactly what you call it, like a degree of magnitude. You don't have to use that one. That was one that worked for me. Find one that works for you. When I started my exam, I just wrote this like vertically on the side of my scratch paper with all the different units. I'd write that all out so that I could just look at it and refer to it when I needed to convert units and to be really fast. Next thing is to be good at math. I am absolute buns at math, okay? So this was hard for me, but you can get good at math. So know some mental tricks for logarithms, natural logs, exponents, and scientific notation. So know how to like divide 10 to the negative 6 over 10 to the negative 2, right? Like know how to do stuff like that, and everything in between, things that are also more complicated than that. And if you know these shortcuts and you know how to do math like this, you're gonna have a ton of gimme questions that you can get super quick and save a bunch of time and get answers right. Free points. Moving on to cars. I would recommend starting off each of your study days with like 1 to 3 cars passages and treat it like the actual exam. I spent about 4 minutes reading each passage and then a minute per question after it, and that pretty much used up every single possible minute of that section. I also think it's important for this section to use different strategies, because there are so many different strategies out there. For example, I heard somebody say they got like a perfect score or whatever, like a better score than I got on this section. And they said that they just read the first sentence and the last sentence of each paragraph and then just went straight to the questions. And if they were confused, they would go back and try to read a little bit more information from that paragraph. They only did that if they had to. That did not work for me. I was completely cooked when I did that. Like, I got a 0. I got like a 118. What ended up working for me was completely different. I discovered the Control H function, where you can highlight it and then you click Control H and it will highlight it on the actual website or application. And so the things that I would highlight were dates, names, events, quotations, ideas from the author, opinions, points of view, just those things that the AAMC would probably use to create questions off of. And it's not so much that the actual highlighting was useful, like I was going back and reading what I highlighted. It was more just like me recognizing it and highlighting it kind of made me slow down on that bit of information, and it helped it stick in my brain so that when I went to the questions, I wasn't bouncing back and forth between the questions and the passage, which wastes a ton of time. So I felt like I could read the passage, have a really good understanding of what the passage was, and then I could blow through the questions pretty fast. It worked phenomenally for me, and once again, it bumped my score on my last practice exam. I got a 129 on cars, which was huge for me, and that was like 4 days before my MCAT, but a different strategy might work for you, and so try a bunch of different strategies and see which one works best. Another good tip is just to read for fun. Read books to wind down. Have like a book that you're reading. MCAT's a lot of reading, and if you can comprehend things and read things, then it's gonna help you on cars. Now you've arrived at your break. So you've done your first 2 sections, and now you have a break where you can eat some lunch, you can drink some juice, because your brain needs sugar, okay? Your brain needs something to keep working. Sugar is like gasoline for your brain. It's like octane, it's like the NOS. Every single practice exam that I took, I tried to simulate exactly like the exam. So like no distractions, turn my phone off, pretty much exactly like I took the exam on test day. And the good thing about that is that I could experiment with different things that I ate or drank during my break to see how it made me feel by the end of the exam. And what I noticed was that I was so cooked by the time I got to the last section of the MCAT, which was literally my major. I was a psych major, and it was consistently one of my lowest sections, which didn't make any sense to me because I also felt like I knew the material pretty well. But it turns out I was so mentally fatigued that I started making just dumb logical errors when I was answering questions. The next day when I would review my exam, I'd be like, really, why did I put B? C is definitely obviously the right answer. I was making dumb errors, and I noticed that when I ate something sugary, I know, don't eat sugar, but this is a really good instance to eat sugar. I would just drink like a Coke, not Diet Coke, an actual Coke during my break, and it helped me with my mental fatigue so much. I noticed my scores getting higher after I just had a little bit of sugar in my break. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. And so on test day, all that I ingested during my break was a Coca-Cola and a sandwich, and it was perfect. And I got a 132 on that section. I'm not saying it was because of the Coke, but it helped. Try to take the full 30 minutes of this break because it is so nice to just relax, go like see some sun. There was a big window at my testing center that had a bunch of sun pouring down, and Funny enough, there was actually a hospital right across the road. And so during my break for the MCAT, I was just sipping my Diet Coke and just looking out at this hospital being like, this is the exam that I'm taking to someday work there. It's sort of surreal and kind of nice, actually. I'll never forget it. But yeah, try that. See what works best for you. If sugar isn't your thing, then just stop doing it. But you're gonna take a bunch of practice exams, and I would recommend treating every single practice exam exactly like the exam you're going to take on test day. So like put some foam earbuds in, or like a headset that is just noise canceling that you would take like to the shooting range. Experiment a little bit with every exam and see what helps you enhance your score, enhance your focus, your drive, your stamina. Now off to the BB section, biology, biochemistry. I don't know if it's biochemistry, biology, doesn't matter. This was my most consistent scoring section. I got either a 128 or a 129 every single practice exam that I took of the AAMC, not of the other ones, because I was garbage at those. But the key to this section is to know your biochemical pathways like the back of your hand. Know the Krebs cycle, know glycolysis, pyruvate oxidation, everything, electron transport chain, all of that stuff, know everything there is to know about it. And that might sound like a lot, and it is, but you can do sort of a similar thing that you did with your equations, where you learn all about the Krebs cycle, right? You draw the big octagon with all the different parts, and then all the intermediates of the Krebs cycle. Write down all the information, what goes in, what goes out, what's happening, why is each one important, how does it integrate with other parts of other biochemical pathways, and then check it with a source. Check it with a diagram online, and then do it again. Do it until you can get it perfectly to the point where you can understand what's going on, and then just rinse and repeat. Do that at the start of every single study day, and you will know your biochemical pathways so well that it will be dumb if you miss a question on it. That's what you want to be. You want to be prepared. This is a test of preparation. You also need to know pretty much everything there is to know about amino acids. Now there's 20 essential amino acids. They love testing on amino acids. There could be multiple questions on amino acids. There will be multiple questions on it. Know their structure, know what they do. Know obviously if they're hydrophobic, hydrophilic, positively charged, negatively charged. Also know about enzymes like Michaelis-Menten kinetics, Lineweaver-Burke plots. Those are super tested on. Very, very high yield stuff. If you can know those, know your amino acids, know your biochemical pathways, it's a lot of this section. Okay, now you've made it to your very last section of the MCAT. Congrats, bro. It's awesome. The science sociology section is sort of like a hybrid between a science section and cars. There are a lot of questions that you could get right off of pure interpretation of the text. And then there's a lot of questions that you actually have to have stuff memorized for. If you can sort of meld those two strategies into this section, you're gonna do really well. It's really hard to stay mentally focused during this section, knowing that once you are done and once you hit submit, you will get to go home. Try not to think about just rushing through this section. I know it's pretty easy to do, and a lot of people blow through this section with a ton of time left over. Once again, I would do the Mr. Pankow deck, and I would do the 300-page psychology sociology document. I would also use Reddit for this one because there's lots of theories that are really similar, and people on Reddit have good ways of remembering distinguishing factors between like Schachter Singer. That's another thing. I never actually say these theories out loud. I just read them online, so I don't know how to say them. Schachter Singer and like Cannon Bard or stuff like that. Like some of those theories are really hard to differentiate, and there are people that have good ways of remembering that online, especially on Reddit. So I'd go there for that. And now you're done with the MCAT. Feels pretty good, huh? Okay, now that you've taken the MCAT and you've gotten your score back, what is a good score? What I can tell you is that the average MD matriculant, so individuals that get into MD medical schools in the United States, the average is a 511.9. And at DO schools, the average is a 504.77. So if you are within a few point difference of a 511, then you have a really good shot at getting into MD schools, and vice versa for DO schools. Now at lots of MD schools, there are going to be people that get in with 504s. Or even lower scores potentially. And that's just how averages work, because the MCAT is not your entire application. It is just one part of your application that tells the admissions committee how you're going to hold up to academic rigor. And so if you go onto the MSAR, you can go look at the medical schools that you want to apply to, and you can see what their average MCAT is, and you can see the distribution as well. So if you are in the bottom 10% of the MCAT scores that were accepted, the previous year, then you can still apply. You might just not have a great chance of getting in, but if you write really great essays and you apply early and you do all the other things right, that will increase your odds a lot. Just remember, your MCAT score is not everything, but it's a big part of your application that just opens the door to get eyeballs on your application. Higher score opens the door faster, gets more eyeballs reading your essays. Another thing to remember is that if you are applying to out-of-state public schools, those schools are going to favor in-state people more, so you want to have a higher MCAT score to offset that. Now I want to talk about how to improve your full-length scores. I've said this a lot already. Simulate the testing environment. That's the most important thing. Don't go on your phone. Don't look stuff up. I've heard people doing this. It's like dumb. It's inflating your score. It's giving you a false sense of hope. The best way to get better at something is by doing that thing. So if you want to improve your full-length scores, first of all, figure out what's going wrong. Are you running out of time on the sections and then you have to just answer like abacadabra on like 10 questions and then submit? Or is there a content gap? Are you like, I have no idea what these 10 questions were even saying, and so you have to do some more memorization, you have to do some more Anki, watch some more YouTube videos. Bottom line is, you need to do more practice problems and you need to do more practice tests. Those are the best ways to actually improve your score. You can also try changing your strategy, like I did. I changed my strategy on cars, and I went from a 125 to a 129 on my last exam. And the day before you take your exam, don't do anything. Don't do anything. Watch Star Wars. I would get more sleep than you normally do. Try to just chill out, okay? Please. Megan and I, we went to Texas Roadhouse with Madeline. We just had a good time. And it was actually one of the most relaxing days that I had ever. Even though I was taking the MCAT the next day, it was so relaxing because I knew that nothing I did that day would matter on the exam. There was nothing that I could study that day that was going to improve my score. So I could just relax and just have a good time. I had done all the work. I had done all the studying. I just had to physically be in the best shape possible to execute and put forth everything that I had prepared on test day. So do that same thing. Put in the work the months before, and then the day before, relax, do nothing, and then on test day, just knock it out of the park. So now I'm gonna talk about what test day is actually like. I would recommend going to your testing center like a week or two before, just to know where it is, where you need to go, because you don't want to just show up there and have no idea where you're going and then for some reason be late. That would not be fun. Me, Megan, and Madeline, we all just rode up there in the car after a party that we were at, and we just sat in the parking lot, and I was like, dang, this is where I'm gonna be losing my mind next week. And now that you've done a bunch of practice exams, mentally, you need to treat your exam date like just another practice exam. That's all it is. It's just another practice exam. For me, my actual MCAT felt almost indistinguishable from the AAMC exams that I took. It just felt like the same thing. The wording was the same, the style was the same, and it was so comforting once I got into that and realizing, oh, this is sort of just the same thing. It helped ease my nerves a lot. So go into it with that mentality. It's a big deal. Do not talk to other test takers. You do not want to get your test invalidated, and if you are chit-chatting with other people, that could raise some red flags for the testing administrators, and you don't want that to happen. When I got to my testing center, they gave us all a piece of paper, like laminated paper, that gave a bunch of rules for the exam. So things that we were and were not allowed to do. And it said that we weren't allowed to talk to people about the testing material, which on my test day, there was literally someone who was doing that during our break and was trying to talk to me about it. He was like, oh, so yeah, how was that CP section, huh? And I just didn't even say any words back. I just was going, I was like, I'm sorry, dude. Did you not read the paper or the million emails you got from the AAMC telling you all the testing rules? You also need a valid form of ID, like a driver's license. And when you go in and out of the actual testing room where your computer is, at my center, they had like a palm scanner where they scanned all the veins in my palm to make sure it was actually me going in and out. They would check my ID, and then they would do like a pat down to make sure that I wasn't bringing anything into the center. I had like a little desk with some dividers, so I couldn't see anything in my periphery, which was a big deal. I really liked that. That's something that I didn't have at the library. And then I had either big headphones or like the little squishy earbuds that you can put in. And then you also have a scratch pad next to you. Now, what do you do after your exam? Well, I'll tell you what I did. I listened to Linkin Park, What I've Done, on my way home. It's a very weird song to listen to, but I remember that was the exact song that I listened to. You also need to be on top of the day you are going to register for the MCAT, which is going to be several months before. I took my MCAT on May 10th, and I registered for it the October prior. So know that you can't just go in and take the MCAT. You need to register for it well in advance. So like a year before you plan on taking it, I would look up the registration dates. Make sure that your AAMC account is set up with all of your personal information ready to go before registration day so that you can just go on, get into the virtual queue, get your day with minimal hassle, because you don't want to wait, because spots are gonna fill up sort of fast and you want to be able to take the exam at a center that's closest to you. I would also recommend taking the MCAT at a time that doesn't require you to do all of your secondary essays at the same time that you would be studying for it, but also that you will be able to get your score back before you apply. I actually didn't do this. I took the MCAT, like I said, on May 10th, and I applied on May 28th. And since the MCAT takes a month for your score to get back to you, I applied to medical schools before I even knew what my MCAT score was, which is okay. There's actually a workaround for this that you can watch in a different video in the playlist, the video in the playlist just before this one. But for minimal stress, take the MCAT well in advance of when you apply. Now let's say that you got a bad score on your first attempt and you want to retake it. Just know that both attempts are going to show up on your application and you really want there to be an upward trend. Also, when you are done with your exam, you will have the option to void your exam or to submit it for grading. Voiding it means that medical schools will not even know that you took it and you will not know your score. It is like it never happened. It will be completely erased off of the face of the earth. And if you click, yes, I choose for my exam to be graded, you will get your score back in about a month. Okay guys, that is everything that I could possibly think of for the MCAT. And I know that there are probably things that are going to come to my mind later on that I forgot to talk about, and I'm sorry, but I hope that I gave enough information in this video to point you in the right direction for your studying and to give you some hope. You can do it. I am not a great test taker and I did well on the MCAT. I'm very proud of my score. It's possible for you to do it if you're self-studying like me. Now you got this. Drop any comments down below. Please subscribe to this channel if you like this video, and até o próximo vídeo.